Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, and we're also going to stick to my home county of Skåne here in the very south of the country. For this review then we are going to return to a brewery that you've seen me review numerous beers from before. This must be review number 25 or so involving this brewery, if memory serves me correctly. But this is a series of beers that they've only released fairly recently, but it is one that I've really been enjoying over the last couple of months, and this is going to be installment number 5 from this series. So for this review then we are going to head to Helsingborg in the northwest corner of the county, and we're having a look at yet another beer from Brewski Mikrobryggeri. So this beer is called the Hawaiian Tropical Pie. It comes in at 4.5% ABV. As I said earlier, this is a member of the Pie series of fruity Weisse that they've been doing, and this one was released as part of the Tillfälligt assortment at the end of August in 2020 through Systembolaget here in Sweden. I forget whether this one was on the 18th or the 25th, but it was definitely one of those two dates that it was released. So yeah, the other beers that I've had from the Pie series so far, it was first off the Triple Berry Pie, then it was the Strawberry Pie, and the last two that you saw me review, which came out in the August Lokalis Moskoli, that was the Raspberry Pie and also the Dragon Fruit Pie. So this is the first one that we're having that's a little bit more kind of tropical in its fruity makeup, if you like. But this one comes in at 4.5% ABV. The alcohol in this series tends to change depending on exactly what beer it is, but this one is a Brewery Notes at 4.5% with passion fruit, pineapple, coconut and vanilla added to the brew. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. These beers only started being released a couple of months back this year in 2020. They have also been releasing the cake series of beers as well, which is the kind of pastry stout ones that they've been doing. I think there's only been 2 released in Systembolaget from that one so far, but I will keep an eye on what these guys are releasing over the next few months, and you will see more pie and cake series beers reviewed here on the channel. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. Hopefully it's another good addition to the Pie series, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brewski Mikrobryggeri before, and no doubt you will see more added to that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Brewski Mikrobryggeri then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've told you on many occasions before, Brewski Mikrobryggeri are based in Helsingborg in the northwest corner of Skåne, and they were founded back in 2014. So the founders of this company are Marcus Hjalmarsson, Johan Britsen, Alfred Olsen and Robin Skoglund, and all of these guys were kind of inspired to start their own brewery and get into home brewing after having tried the West Coast American beers. So Marcus is the main man behind the brewing from what I understand. He was originally associated with the High Nose brand of beer, which was brewed at Höganäs Brewery on the Kullaberg Peninsula, again to the northwest of Helsingborg, and those beers are still produced there, and the original Brewski beers were produced up there in Höganäs as well, but all the Brewski beers are now brewed at their own brewery in the old train yard to the south of the central station in Helsingborg, and this brewery has a capacity of up to 100,000 litres of beer per month. But as far as I understand, they don't use all of it at the moment, but I think they are working to kind of scale that up over the next while actually. I'm not sure how COVID-19 though is going to affect that. But a little bit after their foundation in 2016, they started their own beer festival called Brewskival. In the first year it had over 40 different brewers, and it's continually expanded year on year. The first year that I went there was 2017, and I think it was about 60 60 brewers that they had, and I think the last time, 2019, I was there, it was well over 100 breweries. But another thing that they used to do was that they opened up the brewery once a month as a bar and called it Brewski, but they do now have their own bar in central Helsingborg, which goes by the same name. This opened back in 2018, and you can get numerous Brewski beers in there that you won't find in Systembolaget. But there you'll also get some nice ramen noodles. Actually, it's not authentic Japanese ramen. The chef that's in there is American, but I will say, as someone who has considerable experience with Japanese ramen, it is pretty damn tasty actually. Just don't be expecting the kind of really authentic stuff, but it is really damn nice actually. So I would recommend that you go and check out Brewski in Helsingborg if you get the chance. I still need to film an out and about video there. That's one of the places that I really want to hit up. But these guys also now brew some beer over in the US at Tampa Bay Brewing Company in Florida, and they are at present looking to open up a bar in Oslo as well. Marcus actually has a distribution company called Brewski up in Norway, which transports and imports some of the Swedish beers into Norway. I'm not quite sure if they have a contract yet with Vinmonopolet, which is the Norwegian equivalent of Systembolaget, but I think that is something that is in the works a little bit. But yeah, we'll just need to see how that kind of goes. But you know, Brewski is a pretty cool concept actually. But over 2019 these guys produced 500,000 litres of beer in total. I'm not sure if that was including the stuff that they were producing over in America, but as of September 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 300 different types of beer. At the moment, you know, they are focusing more on the kind of fruity Berliner Weisses. They have been releasing a few more pastry stouts and things recently, but historically these guys have been releasing more, you know, kind of fruity IPAs, New England hazy IPAs and stuff like this. Probably the most famous series of beers that these guys do is the Faber series actually. You know, there was the Francisco Faber, the Mango Faber, the Passion Faber, all of these sorts of different things. But yeah, really interesting brewery, this one. One of the first Swedish craft breweries that I encountered when I moved over here back in 2015, and they have been doing some really interesting stuff ever since. Probably my favourite beer that I've ever had from these guys would be the Conan the Barbarian, which was a double. Was it just Conan? Was it called? I think it was just called the Conan Double IPA, and that one was really quite nice. Little Big Hoppy was also a really good beer, and yeah, I really liked that as well. So yeah, you know, as I say, this is one of the Swedish breweries that I would highly recommend that you check out, and yeah, particularly if you're interested in fruit beers, sour beers, and the kind of New England hazy IPAs as well, but they have been branching out a little bit more recently. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Brewski Mikrobryggeri for the moment. If you do want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. I'm really curious to see what this one has in store for us. So yeah, as I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one is a 4.5% Berliner Weisse. It's another member of the Pie series of beers that Brewski have been doing. The alcohol content of these seems to vary a little bit. Some of them are 4, some of them are 4.5. I think some of them have been 5% if I remember correctly, but it is the 5th in the series after Triple Berry Pie, Strawberry Pie, Dragon Fruit Pie and Raspberry Pie, which were released at the same time, and then this one came out just a few weeks later actually. So in August of 2020, Brewski actually released 4 different beers through Systembolaget, which is pretty impressive. So a pretty damn prolific brewery, I have to say. But there you can see on the bottom of the can, that is the little Brewski man that you'll find on all of these different beers. But yeah, a 4.5% Berliner Weisse with passion fruit, pineapple, coconut and vanilla. So this, as I said to you, is one of the first of the kind of tropical ones that they've released in this series. So hopefully it turns out to be as good as the more kind of berry orientated ones. Although in fairness, I say this is the first of the more tropical ones they've released. Would you count dragon fruit as tropical? I'm not sure. That one for me was really more quirky than anything else because I'd never tried dragon fruit before. But yeah, 330ml can, this one. I think I paid either 35 or 40 Swedish kroners for this one. So that was about £3 sterling, about, you know, €3.50, maybe nearer €4, something like that. But yeah, still worth it anyway. Definitely curious to see what this beer has in store for us. So let's get it out and get on with the tasting. I'll just sugar up the last little bit of it, because I suspect this one, as a Berliner Weisse, it will have a little bit more kind of sediment to it. But looking in the can, I think we did manage to get most of it out actually. So that is exactly what we want. And I'll tell you something, when you pour this beer, it smells absolutely beautiful. It smells very, very nice. So yeah, as you can see with this one, and as you would expect, especially from a more tropical leaning Berliner Weisse, this one's poured a lovely kind of bright yellow colour. This one could be mistaken for like a New England hazy IPA or something like this. But yeah, if we shine the light through this, I would describe this as being a very, very kind of bright mango juice yellow, something like that, pineapple juice yellow maybe. You could see when this beer poured, it had about a half finger of a frothy, perfect white head. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, but the head has just faded away to be a very kind of thin, foamy ring around the outer edge of the glass, and there's just one or two little tiny tufts of foam, if you like, sitting there on the surface. But yeah, in terms of a Berliner Weisse, this colour isn't unheard of. So, you know, nothing overly surprising about this one, particularly when you consider what fruits are in it. The other ones, of course, have been, you know, more purpley and reddy and all of these kind of things. But like I say, this is the more kind of, the first more tropically leaning member of the pie series that we've had so far. So yeah, this one should be really quite nice actually. Let's have a little look at the aroma of this one then before we have a taste of it. I'm really curious about this beer, I have to say. Oh yeah, that smells really nice. I mean, straight away with this one, you're going to notice, as you quite often do with this pie series, you're going to notice that lovely big base that the beer has. So there's a hell of a lot of kind of oaty creaminess coming out of this one, and the vanilla sort of just, the vanilla really kind of jumps into that. I'm just going to check that this one does have oats in it. Yeah, it does, havre. So yeah, it does have oats in it, this one. So you're getting a lovely big kind of oaty creaminess out of this one. There's a lovely big kind of, you know, white bready, wheaty quality coming out of this one. It does have a little touch of kind of spiciness to it as well, which is kind of interesting. I'm noticing the wheat in this one comes across as being a little bit more spicy, but I think the vanilla really gives the beer that almost kind of candied, almost very slightly bubblegummy type note, which is interesting. But the wheat will be partially responsible for that kind of bubblegummy quality as well. If you just think, you know, Hefeweizens always usually have just a little bit of a kind of candied bubblegummy quality to them. But yeah, the base of this one is really quite nice, and again, that's a kind of consistent theme through this this pie series from Brewski. So yeah, you get the lovely kind of smooth white bready wheaty qualities out of this one. You can smell the big thick oaty creaminess in there as well, and it's almost just like the vanilla kind of holds the whole thing together and makes it really thick, creamy, and just very, very candied in its aroma. But I do, as I say, get a little bit more kind of spiciness out of the wheat in this one than I did with the others, and maybe that's just due to the nature of the fruits being a little bit more tropical rather than more kind of berry-like, if you like. I'm not sure if that quite makes sense, but to me it does. So I hope it does to you guys as well. But yeah, malt base in this one still very, very candied, very smooth and very sweet. It does just smell a little bit lighter, I think, than the other ones as well, but again, it might just be due to the nature of the fruits, to be honest with you. So yeah, beyond that, there's not too much to say about the malt base. You might get one or two little woody undertones to it, but I think otherwise it is pretty kind of straight up. Now, on the fruity side of things, the passion fruit for me comes out as being very, very kind of soft and juicy, which is quite interesting. That forms the kind of back of that sort of forms the backbone of the fruity aroma almost in this one. The passion fruit is the one that really kind of comes to the fore for me. So I think this one, as I say, is it only two fruits that's in this? Yeah. So yeah, the passion fruit and the pineapple. I think the pineapple is the one that's a little bit more apparent in the aroma for sure, and that kind of mixes in with the coconut, like on the front, kind of almost on the front edge of the nose, if you like. You get the lovely kind of bright pineapple notes out of this one. You can smell the coconut sort of mixing in underneath that, along with that kind of oaty and vanilla type creaminess there. But the passion fruit sits in a little bit more, and it comes out as just a little bit more of a kind of pungent type fruit, if you like. So that's a really interesting aspect to this beer, the way that those two fruits come out. If I remember rightly, this one actually has a lower number of fruits in it than the other ones. The other ones all had, you know, we had triple berry pie, so 3 different types of berries. Strawberry pie, I think, had lemons and something else in it as well, if I remember rightly. and then the raspberry pie, and the raspberry pie had a few different things in it too. And I think, did the dragon fruit pie have some? I'll have a bit of lemon in it as well. I can't quite remember, but yeah, this one to me, this is a really different vibe that you get from this beer compared to the other ones in the series. But I think that's just owing to the nature of the fruit. So for me, the passion fruit in this one does come across. It does have a bit of the pungency in the back of the nose, but otherwise it comes across really smoothly. But I think the pineapple, the brightness of the pineapple, really is what kind of captures the nose in this one. That's what really jumps out of the nose at you here. So yeah, the pineapple-y and passion fruit notes really mix in well with that whole vanilla kind of note that you're getting out of the beer as well. It's a beautiful smelling beer, this one, I have to say. The thing I've always found with these Berliner Weisses is I don't find these to be the most complex beers in terms of their flavour profile or the aroma, but if they're done well, as they have been from Brewski in the past, they can be really, really nice. There's a number of very talented producers in Sweden along this line. Duck Pond, Morgendagens, Wizard, Örebro Brewhus are doing some really interesting stuff as well. There's some very, very talented sour beer breweries out these days now. I'm not quite sure if you can consider these pastry sours. I guess you maybe could, in fairness, because they have that very kind of sweet malt base. But yeah, these are more like kind of candied, fruity Berliner Weisses, to be honest with you. Some of the Goses that you get, Omnipoyo have been doing these for a long time. Some of the big fruity Goses are really nice beers as well. But yeah, I really like how this one comes across. This one doesn't have hops in it, but you do almost get just a little bit of that kind of grassy, sort of floral vibe out of the beer. It's almost like placebo effect because it's just what you're used to trying everything else. But yeah, I do find there is just a little bit of a kind of grassy vibe to the aroma of this beer as well. But definitely take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it. But we're going to taste this one now and just see how we get on. So let's have a go at it, guys. This one is the Hawaiian Tropical Pie, a 4.5% Berliner Weisse with passion fruit, pineapple, coconut, and vanilla added into the brew there. The coconut, I think I didn't really mention that, but the coconut just kind of sits in there with the oaty notes, which is quite nice. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. Slange Skål, my 5th beer from this lovely Berliner Weisse pie series that Brewski are doing. Cheers. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's another really solid beer actually in this series. I will say with this one, I don't find this one quite as thick and creamy as I have compared to the others in the series. And in fairness, I can kind of understand why that is. And I'm just checking. It's not due to sediment on the can. The can is pretty clean on the bottom there. This one just feels as if it's been brewed a little bit lighter and less creamy than the other ones, but I think that suits it in a way because it allows a little bit of tartness, and I think that suits the I think that really suits the types of fruits that are in this beer actually. But yeah, this one is really, really nice in that sense as well, so it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. I will say, in terms of the Berliner Weisses, I tend to lean a little bit more towards the kind of berry type things, but you know, this one is really pretty nice actually, so I would recommend it. I would recommend it. This one, it is up there on the same level as the other ones for me. It's just a different vibe, I feel like. It's more tropical than it is berry. Some people prefer that. I've always leaned a little bit more towards the berry side of things, and that's just the kind of, I guess that's maybe just the Scottish in me. A lot of our desserts in Scotland are based on berries and brown sugars and stuff, which is why I love Doppelbocks and Scotch ales and old ales and all these kind of things. But yeah, this is a lovely, lovely Berliner Weisse once again, so thumbs up to Brewski. I'm curious to see what they do next. I'm wondering how far they can push this this pie series. Will it be blueberry pie next or something like that? I'm not quite sure. Need to see. Cloudberry pie or lingonberry pie or something like that maybe next. But yeah, straight away with this beer then, you get that lovely, smooth, white bready quality, just blanketing the middle of your tongue actually. That goes straight across the middle of your palate. If you go towards the back third of your tongue, you get a lovely kind of thicker, wheaty note out of this beer. It's really, really very, very smooth actually. The sort of spiciness that I was picking up from the wheat in this beer isn't so apparent in the flavour in my mind. But yeah, it really has a lovely smoothness there, and it just does feel a little bit thicker on that back third of the tongue. As you move further forward into the middle of the palate, you can really feel this beer, it kind of thins out a little bit, and then the oats, I think, they kind of sit there on that middle third of the tongue there. It's really nice actually. I think the vanilla comes out a lot more apparent in this. I think that the vanilla in this beer is a lot more apparent, to be honest with you. It just kind of sits there and it makes everything kind of stick together. I think the coconut is also playing a role in how kind of sweet the malt base in this one is as well. It almost really feels that the vanilla and the coconut are kind of working together. It almost feels like you have the oats underneath in the middle third of the palate, then the slightly thicker wheat on the back third of the palate. Then you've almost got this kind of coconut milk type thing that just sits on top of it actually. That's what I really get out of this one on the top there. The malt base, it's it's a really kind of straight shooting sort of thing, but it works beautifully with the rest of the beer in my mind. So yeah, big thumbs up to Brewski once again for this one. A lovely big kind of sweet and smooth Berliner Weisse, and I really like that. So yeah, in terms of the kind of the fruity side of this beer, then, because that's the next thing. I think we don't really need to say much more about the malty side of it, other than that if you go to the front corners of your palate and go kind of diagonally backwards, you do get a slightly more kind of concentrated coconut flavour out of this one. That's the only other thing I would add in there. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, it's really interesting. You do get, when you first take this beer in, you do get a little bit of a kind of citricy tartness just developing behind the very front tip of the tongue. As I've always said, when you add fruit into a beer, it really suppresses a little bit of the kind of green side of the hops, if you like. It takes away a little bit of the IBUs. This beer doesn't have hops in it, so that's not an issue, of course. But I would say that around the kind of front kind of curve of the tongue, you do get just a little bit of a kind of grassy vibe out of this beer, and it must just be placebo effect, but it's a really interesting balance there between the, I think the pineapple, I think around the front edge of the tongue, I think it's really a quite a pineapple-y flavour, and towards the back corners of the palate you do almost just get a little bit of a lemony, citricy type note from the sour side of the beer. I'd be curious to know exactly what yeast strains they've used with this. Is it Lactobacillus Brettanomyces, or like a house yeast that they've developed themselves, or something like that? I'd be really curious to know what it is exactly that they're using in this. But yeah, there's definitely a slightly more citricy quality to this one than there has been to the other releases in this series. But yeah, it comes across really nicely. But yeah, on the kind of front third of your tongue, if you like, that's where you usually get these big kind of fruity esters out of the beer. But if you go towards the back of it, you will get a slightly stronger passion fruity note. But other than that, it's a very, when you move further forward on this one, you get a lovely kind of balance between the kind of very, very soft passion fruit, a bit of the lighter pineapple in there, and I really like how all of that is kind of is blended together there. These two fruits that are in this, it works really nicely. I do wonder, you know, if you added another fruit into this one, you might just overcomplicate it. Sometimes simplicity is better, and I think that's one of the reasons that this beer works so well. Because this one, to be fair, this one is quite radically different to the others in the series, I would say, definitely. But yeah, the softness of the tropical fruit there on the front third of the palate there is really nice, and it builds a good bridge between the kind of sweeter vanilla and more malty kind of notes that sit behind it on the middle third and the back third of the palate. I think the lovely light passion fruit and pineapple notes, they really sit there, but in fairness, underneath that you can pick out a little bit. The vanilla actually does spread forward underneath the kind of fruity third of your palate as well, which is really interesting. So yeah, it's really interesting just how all of that goes together. But on the very tip of your tongue, there is a bit of that kind of lemony citric note from the yeast in there. Then around the kind of edge of the palate, you've got a lovely kind of lemony citricy note in there as well. Towards the back corners of the palate, as I say, you do for some reason get a little bit more of that lemony, zesty, citricy note out of it too, which is very interesting. So yeah, there is a wee bit of zestiness on the edge of the palate there, and you will almost get a bit of a kind of grassy placebo effect out of this one. So it's really interesting that this is a really very, very quirky beer in my mind. But I think the further you go into the aftertaste, you get more vanilla out of this, you get a little bit more coconut, but you get the lovely kind of softness from the fruity edge of the beer as well. So I really like how how this one goes together. It's a big thumbs up from me, this. As I say, quite different from the other releases in the series, but equally as good in my mind. Equally as good. The other comparison I would make is that this one is not quite as thick and creamy, I think, as the other ones, but I think that is due to the nature of the fruits. But on that note, we should move on to the mouthfeel, because that's the last thing we need to examine. So yeah, I would describe this beer as being at the very top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. It's got a lovely kind of smoothness to it, this beer, like I say. It comes across as a little bit more oily, but at the same time it is quite creamy. It's almost, I think, probably slick, actually. Probably calling it slick is a better description of what it actually is. But yeah, the slickness you get out of this beer is really nice. As I say, not quite as thick and just creamy as the other releases in the series, but it works for it really well. It kind of, that slickness helps bring out the tropical fruit a bit more. The bright, as I say, the brighter pineapple, and the slightly, the very smooth and slightly more creamy passion fruit in there. In terms of IBUs, this beer, I think technically it is a 0 IBU beer, but I would be surprised if it is exactly 0. You'll probably get, maybe about 5 IBUs at the most out of this one. And I do find there is just a little bit of that kind of around the edge of the tongue there. It's got a little bit of that darker kind of tropical passion fruit. Their passion fruit can have a little bit of a darker citrusy pungency to it at the same time. But yeah, otherwise very light and very, very bright and juicy beer, this one. But you've got a lovely kind of big smooth creaminess in the middle of the palate there. It's the vanilla and the coconut, I think, that really just join the wheat and the oats together there. It's almost a little bit candied, I think, in fairness as well. So lovely big kind of sweetness and smoothness and creaminess in the malt base. Lovely juicy fruits. The tartness on this one is minimal. It comes in a little bit tart, but then the rest of the beer is really sweet rather than anything else. But yeah, a very, very slick and quite smooth mouthfeel in my mind. So yeah, a lovely, lovely beer, this one. Another great addition to the pie series. As I said, I'm very curious to see what else these guys are going to throw up in this particular mini-series, if you can call it that. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Hawaiian Tropical Pie, a 4.5% Berliner Weisse. I'm not sure if you can term this as a pastry sour as well, but this one was a Berliner Weisse with passion fruit, pineapple, coconut and vanilla added to the brew from Brewski Mikrobryggeri in Helsingborg in Skåne in the northwest, in the south of the country, in the northwest of the county, I should say. Brain's not working. But yeah, lovely beer, this one, and I'm glad that I was able to review this for you here. I look forward to more from this series, more from the cake series, and we will be doing a few more hazy IPAs and things like that. They have been releasing some Hefeweizens recently, so I guess I should have a look at some of those as well. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Brewski Mikrobryggeri as well. We will return to these guys very, very soon, but in the meantime, thanks for watching. Check out my other reviews and do check out some more beers from Brewski Mikrobryggeri. I highly recommend the pie series. The cake series is great as well, and the New England hazies are very good as well, but not sure how many of those they're releasing at the moment. The Fever series is really interesting too. But until the next time, slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål. Make sure you check out Brewski from Helsingborg here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Cheers.